The War Council of the Krill Dominion gathered in the great chamber of their flagship. War Master Thexkar stood before the holographic display, his forearms crossed in satisfaction. His chitinous armor gleamed under the harsh lights, and his 6 eyes studied the blue-green planet rotating slowly before him. "This world," he announced to his officers, "will fall in 3 days." The other Krill warriors clicked their mandibles in agreement. They had conquered 47 star systems. They had destroyed species that had energy shields and plasma weapons. This primitive planet called Earth had nothing but metal projectiles and chemical explosives. It would be almost insulting to send a full fleet. 10,000 warriors, Thexkar decided. We will make it a training exercise for our young hunters. No one questioned his judgment. The Krill had never lost a culling operation. They were the apex predators of the galaxy, evolved from ambush hunters on a brutal death world. Their reflexes were 3 times faster than most species. Their armor could withstand small arms fire. Their claws could tear through steel. Earth would be easy prey. The dropships descended on a Tuesday morning. In New York, people looked up to see dark shapes cutting through the clouds. The ships were organic-looking, covered in ridges and spines. They landed in Central Park, crushing trees beneath their weight. The loading ramps opened and the Krill emerged. Sarah Chen was having coffee in her apartment when she heard the screams. She ran to her window and saw them. Tall creatures 8 feet high, moving with terrifying speed. They had too many arms, too many eyes, and mandibles that clicked with sounds like breaking bones. The creatures moved through the streets, their weapons cutting down anything that moved. Police cars arrived within minutes, officers firing their handguns. The bullets hit the Krill armor and bounced away. The creatures turned, almost lazily, and returned fire with weapons that turned concrete into dust. Around the world, the same scene repeated. Beijing, Mumbai, São Paulo, Lagos, London, Moscow. 10,000 Krill warriors spread across Earth's major cities. They moved through streets like death itself, unstoppable and merciless. The television broadcasts showed chaos. News anchors stammered through reports they could barely believe. Military analysts tried to explain what was happening. World leaders appeared on screens, their faces pale with shock. The President of the United States addressed the nation from a bunker deep beneath Washington. "We are under attack by an unknown enemy. All military forces are being mobilized. Civilians should shelter in place. We will survive this," but the early reports were devastating. Conventional weapons barely scratched the Krill armor. Their reflexes allowed them to dodge missiles. Their technology was centuries ahead of anything Earth possessed. In the first 6 hours, 20,000 humans died. The Krill transmitted their demands in perfect English, somehow having learned the language from intercepted broadcasts.
"Surrender your governments.
Submit to the Dominion. You have 12 hours. War Master Thexkar watched from orbit, pleased with the progress. The humans were panicking exactly as expected. Their militaries were disorganized. Their weapons were pathetic. This would be over before the deadline, but then something changed. It started small. In Colorado, a Navy SEAL team had been training in the mountains when the invasion began. Lieutenant Commander Marcus Webb gathered his men and watched the news footage carefully. He studied how the Krill moved, how they fought, how they hunted. "They're ambush predators," he told his team. "Look at how they approach. Fast strike, overwhelming force, then they expect surrender. They're not prepared for a long fight." Webb's team moved into the suburbs of Denver where a Krill patrol was clearing buildings. But instead of meeting them head-on, the SEALs used the creatures' own tactics against them. They waited. They watched. They learned the patrol patterns. When the Krill entered an office building, the SEALs were ready. Explosives brought down the structure's support columns. The building collapsed, and for the first time, Krill warriors were trapped. The team moved in with armor-piercing rounds aimed at the joints in the Krill armor where the protection was weakest. They captured one alive. The Krill warrior thrashed against the restraints, clicking furiously. Webb stood over it, studying the alien with cold eyes. "Get me everyone who speaks science," he ordered. "I want to know everything about this thing. How it breathes, what it eats, how it thinks, and most importantly, how it dies." Similar scenes played out across the world. In Russia, Spetsnaz forces lured Krill into frozen warehouses and sealed them inside. In Japan, the self-defense force used the subway tunnels to launch surprise attacks and disappear before the Krill could respond. In Nigeria, local militias used improvised explosives with devastating effectiveness. The humans were learning. 72 hours after the invasion began, War Master Thexkar received his first casualty report. 300 warriors dead, 200 wounded, 5 captured. He stared at the numbers in disbelief. Impossible, he growled. These are primitives. How can they? His communication officer interrupted. War Master, we are receiving a transmission from Ground Team 7. They are under attack in what the humans call Australia. The video feed showed chaos. Krill warriors were retreating through a desert landscape, pursued by human vehicles. The humans weren't trying to close distance. They were following, firing, forcing the Krill to keep moving. The alien warriors were exhausted, their movement slowing. The humans showed no signs of fatigue. One Krill warrior collapsed from heat exhaustion. The humans simply drove past him, leaving him for recovery teams. They were hunting the ones still running. Thexkar watched in growing unease. The warrior's final transmission came through, garbled with static. War Master, they don't fight like prey. They fight like us. They hunt like... The transmission ended. In the great chamber of the flagship, War Master Thexkar stood alone, staring at the blue-green planet below. For the first time in his long military career, he felt something unfamiliar crawling up his spine. It felt like doubt. 2 weeks into the invasion, the world had changed in ways no one could have imagined. The United Nations had transformed into a true global government overnight. Old enemies worked side by side. Russian and American scientists shared laboratories. Chinese and Indian military strategists planned operations together. Israeli and Palestinian soldiers fought in the same units. The enemy of my enemy had become more than just a saying. It had become survival. Dr. Sarah Chen stood in a converted warehouse in Geneva that now served as the primary xenobiology research center. She had been a cancer researcher before the Krill came. Now she spent her days dissecting alien corpses and studying the captured warrior that the SEALs had brought in. Look at this, she said to her international team. She pointed at the scans of Krill muscle tissue. Their fast-twitch muscle fibers are incredible. They can move at speeds we can barely track. But look here. She zoomed in on a cellular structure. They have almost no slow-twitch fibers. They are built for explosive movement, not endurance. A Russian biologist named Dmitry leaned forward. They are sprinters, not marathon runners. Exactly, Sarah confirmed. And look at their cooling system. She brought up another scan. They rely on rapid breathing to cool down. They would overheat quickly in sustained combat. General Liu Wei of the Chinese army was in the room listening carefully. He had been appointed as the head of global tactical operations. So we do not match their strength. We outlast them, Sarah nodded. In nature, there is one apex predator that hunts by exhaustion. One species that can run down any prey over long distances. Humans, Dmitry finished. The tactical doctrine changed immediately. Military forces worldwide received new orders. Engage and retreat, harass and withdraw. Never let them rest. Never give them an easy victory. The Krill were confused and increasingly frustrated. They had expected fear and surrender. Instead, they found an enemy that refused to fight on their terms. War Master Thexkar paced in his command center, his forearms gesturing angrily. They are cowards. They will not stand and fight. His second-in-command, a scarred veteran named Krixal, was less certain. War Master, our supplies are running low. The humans have destroyed the infrastructure we plan to capture. Our warriors are exhausted from constant attacks. Perhaps we should what? Thexkar snapped. Retreat? The Dominion does not retreat from prey, but the word stuck in his mind. Prey. Were these humans really prey? Prey ran away and hid. Prey did not learn and adapt. Prey did not get stronger as the fight continued. He had reviewed the combat footage 100 times. Human soldiers using Krill weapons they had scavenged. Human factories retooling to produce armor-piercing ammunition. Human hackers breaking into Krill communication networks. The humans were evolving before his eyes. In the Amazon rainforest, a battle was taking place that would change the course of the war. 2,000 Krill warriors had pursued a human rebel force into the dense jungle. The humans had attacked a supply depot and fled, and the Krill gave chase, eager to finally corner their elusive enemy. The rebels ran deeper into the forest. The Krill followed, confident in their superior speed. But the jungle was hot and humid, and the Krill armor trapped heat. The humans, wearing light clothing and carrying hydration packs, moved steadily ahead. Hours passed. The Krill began to slow. Their breathing grew labored, but the humans did not stop. They would occasionally turn and fire, forcing the krill to take cover or return fire, then retreat again. Days passed. The krill warriors had been bred for quick victories. Their psychology was not prepared for a hunt that lasted this long. They became irritable, unfocused. Some began to hallucinate from heat stress and exhaustion. The humans watched from the trees, their eyes cold and patient. They had water. They had supplies cached throughout the forest. They could do this for weeks if necessary. On the fourth day, krill warriors began collapsing. Their cooling systems overwhelmed, their energy reserves depleted. The humans emerged from the jungle not in a rush but with calm efficiency. They moved among the scattered alien warriors, securing weapons and taking prisoners. Of the 2,000 krill who entered the Amazon, only 300 made it out. The footage reached every corner of the globe. It also reached the Galactic Council, the governing body of civilized space. Representatives from dozens of species watched in stunned silence as primitive humans defeated the feared krill through sheer endurance. Ambassador Tilson of the peaceful Zenthi Collective spoke first. "This is unprecedented. The krill have conquered empires. How are these humans winning?" The ancient Kukstar trademaster consulted his data tablets. They are persistence predators. On their evolutionary path, they hunted by chasing prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. No burst of speed could save their targets. The humans would just keep coming. But that was against animals, another ambassador protested. The krill are advanced warriors. The Kukstar master's eyes whirred as he processed information. The humans evolved to chase down prey in the African heat for hours, sometimes days. They have more sweat glands than any species we have encountered. They can regulate temperature better than most beings. And their psychology is adapted for endurance. They do not give up. War Master Thexkar had no choice. He sent a message to the krill homeworld requesting reinforcements. It was a stain on his honor, an admission that 10,000 warriors could not conquer a single primitive planet. But pride would not win this war. The response came quickly. 100,000 additional warriors, a full battle fleet, and leading them personally, Supreme Commander Vexthal, the greatest krill military mind alive. Vexthal was old by krill standards, his carapace scarred from 100 battles. Unlike the younger warriors, he did not underestimate any enemy. He spent the journey to Earth studying everything the krill had learned about humans. He watched their history files, their wars, their hunts, their evolution. What he saw disturbed him deeply. Humans hunting mammoths with primitive spears, running the great beasts to exhaustion. Humans fighting wars that lasted years, decades, generations. Humans surviving ice ages and plagues. Humans splitting atoms and leaving their home planet to walk on their moon. He saw footage of human tribal warfare, where enemies would raid each other for generations, neither side ever truly winning or surrendering. The concept was alien to krill thinking. Wars ended with victory or defeat, but humans seemed comfortable with endless struggle. Most disturbing was their pack mentality. Krill fought as individuals, each warrior seeking personal glory. But humans fought as groups, as nations, as a species. They coordinated in ways that should not be possible for beings without hive minds. As his fleet entered Earth's orbit, Vexthal made a note in his personal log. "These humans are dangerous, not because they are strong, but because they refuse to accept defeat. We have awoken something that perhaps should have remained sleeping." The krill fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of Earth's solar system. 100 warships carrying 100,000 fresh warriors, all led by Supreme Commander Vexthal. It was the largest military force the krill had assembled in a generation. On Earth, sirens wailed across every continent. The brief hope that had blossomed after the Amazon victory died as people looked up at their screens and saw the approaching armada. This was not a raiding force. This was an extinction event. General Liu Wei stood in the Global Defense Command Center deep beneath the Swiss Alps. Around him, officers from every nation monitored screens showing the approaching threat. The room should have been filled with panic, but instead there was grim determination. "How long until they reach orbit?" Liu asked. 72 hours, sir," a Brazilian officer replied. "Then we have 72 hours to finish the preparations." Liu turned to the assembly. "They think they have seen everything we can do. They are wrong. Show them what humanity can build when we work together." For the past month, while the krill had been regrouping, humanity had not been idle. Every factory, every workshop, every garage had been converted to war production. Not just weapons, but something else. Something the Krill would never expect. In orbit around Earth, the International Space Station had become a construction hub. Astronauts from 17 nations worked around the clock. They had been mining asteroids, salvaging space junk and building. The wreckage of Krill dropships had been studied and reverse engineered. Human creativity combined with alien technology was producing results that terrified and excited in equal measure. Captain Maria Santos floated in her spacesuit, directing the final installations on what had once been a communications satellite. Now it was armed with a railgun built from Krill power cells and human engineering. Around Earth's orbit, thousands of similar weapons waited. "This is insane," her Russian colleague Yuri Petrov said over the radio. "We are turning our entire orbit into a weapons platform." Maria smiled grimly. "They wanted to hunt us. Let's see how they like fighting in our territory." Supreme Commander Vexthal watched the blue planet grow larger on his view screen. His intelligence officers had updated him on human activities. They had detected the orbital weapons, the underground factories, the global coordination. "They have been preparing," his tactical officer reported. "Their orbital defenses are primitive but numerous." Vexthal's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. "Numbers can overcome quality, but the fact that they had time to prepare means our first attack failed to break their spirit. War Master Thexkar should have known better." "The War Master requests permission to lead the first assault wave," another officer said. "He wishes to restore his honor." "Granted," Vexthal decided, "but tell him to be cautious. These humans are not behaving like any prey species we have encountered." The fleet reached Earth orbit on schedule. War Master Thexkar commanded the first wave of landing craft. 50 ships carrying 5,000 warriors, prepared to descend through the atmosphere toward major military installations. They never made it. As the landing craft entered low Earth orbit, the space around them exploded into chaos. Satellites that had appeared dormant suddenly activated, firing railgun slugs at relativistic speeds. Debris fields that seemed random suddenly moved, directed by hidden thrusters into collision courses. Old space stations detonated, turning into clouds of shrapnel. And then came the kamikaze ships. The humans had taken old rockets, cargo vessels, and even private spacecraft and filled them with explosives. Volunteer pilots guided them into the Krill formation. Some missed, many did not, evasive maneuvers. Thexkar screamed, but his landing craft was too slow. A human cargo ship, its hull breached and burning, slammed into his vessel's side. The explosion tore through the Krill ship's armor. Thexkar felt his ship spinning out of control. Around him, his warriors were thrown against bulkheads. Atmosphere vented into space. In his last moments, the War Master realized he had made the same mistake twice. He had underestimated the humans' willingness to sacrifice everything for survival. In the Global Defense Command Center, officers watched the orbital battle unfold. Cheers erupted as Krill ships began exploding or retreating, but General Liu remained focused. "Do not celebrate yet," he warned. "We hurt them, but their main fleet is still intact. They will be more careful now." He was right. Supreme Commander Vexthal watched his forward assault shattered with cold analysis. The humans had traded their orbital infrastructure and thousands of lives to destroy a fraction of his force. It was a trade he would have taken, but it revealed something troubling. These humans thought like pack hunters, not prey. They were willing to sacrifice individuals for the survival of the group. That kind of mentality made them dangerous beyond their primitive technology. "Pull back to high orbit," he ordered. "Launch fighter craft instead of landing ships. We will wear down their defenses before committing ground forces." But the humans had prepared for that too. As Krill fighters swarmed toward Earth, they were met by modified civilian aircraft. Crop dusters, news helicopters, even converted passenger jets, all armed with whatever weapons humanity could attach to them. The pilots were volunteers, many elderly or injured, people who could not fight on the ground but could fly one last mission. The space above Earth became a graveyard. Among the chaos, Captain Maria Santos led a boarding team toward a damaged Krill cruiser that had been crippled by debris. Her team consisted of astronauts, engineers, and former Special Forces operators. They wore Krill armor taken from defeated warriors, modified to fit human bodies. "Remember," she told her team, "we are not trying to destroy this ship. We are capturing it. We need their technology, their star charts, everything." The boarding action was brutal. The Krill defenders were wounded and disorganized, but they fought with desperate ferocity. The humans fought with cold efficiency, using the ship's corridors and the Krill's own tactics against them. Room by room, deck by deck, they took the ship. When Maria finally reached the bridge, she found 3 Krill officers barricaded behind makeshift defenses. They clicked their mandibles, and what she had learned was their battle language. "Surrender," she said simply, her weapon trained on them. The senior officer, a scarred veteran, studied her. "You are prey. Prey does not capture hunters." Maria's eyes were hard. "You came to our world and called us prey. You were wrong. We are the ones who hunted mammoths to extinction with sticks and stones. We are the ones who tamed fire and split atoms. We are the species that looked at the food chain and decided we belonged at the top." She stepped forward. "Now surrender this ship, or I will show you what apex predators really look like." The Krill officer looked at his companions, then back at Maria. Slowly, he lowered his weapons. "You have won this vessel, human. But the Supreme Commander will not stop. Our honor demands victory." "Your honor," Maria said quietly, "is going to get your entire species killed." She activated her communication system, broadcasting on all Krill and human frequencies. Her team had rigged the ship's systems to boost the signal across the entire battle space. "This is Captain Maria Santos of Earth. We have captured the Krill cruiser Vextor. To all Krill forces, hear this message. You called us prey, but you are learning differently now. You wanted hunters? You found them. We are the species that refuses to die. We are the species that turns every disadvantage into a weapon. We are humanity, and we will not surrender. We will not submit. We will fight until you leave our world, or until we drag you down with us." Across the orbital battlefield on both sides, warriors paused to listen. The humans felt hope surge through them. The Krill felt something unfamiliar and uncomfortable. They felt fear. Supreme Commander Vexthal listened to the transmission in his command center. Around him, his officers waited for orders. He looked at the casualty reports. 30% of his forward forces destroyed or captured. Humans using Krill technology against them. Humans who fought with the desperation of cornered predators and the coordination of pack hunters. He pulled up the historical files again, searching for answers. He found himself watching ancient Earth footage. Humans with primitive spears chasing prey across vast distances. The prey would run and the humans would follow. Not quickly, but inevitably. Days would pass, and eventually the prey would collapse from exhaustion, and the patient humans would close in for the kill. Vexthal felt a chill run through his carapace. The Krill were sprinters, fast, deadly, overwhelming, but humans were marathoners. They could sustain pressure forever, and they were doing it now in space with his fleet. 6 months had passed since the Krill fleet arrived in Earth's orbit. The war had settled into a grinding stalemate. The Krill controlled several major cities on the surface, while humans held vast territories and conducted endless guerrilla operations. In orbit, the battle continued with neither side able to gain a decisive advantage. But both sides had changed. The humans had adapted Krill technology with frightening speed. Soldiers wore hybrid armor that combined Krill materials with human design. Weapons had been reverse-engineered and improved. Young people who had been students 6 months ago were now combat veterans with thousands of hours of fighting experience. The Krill, meanwhile, were learning what it meant to fight an enemy that never stopped. Their warriors were exhausted, rotating on and off the front lines constantly. Supply lines were harassed. Communications were hacked. Every night brought new attacks. Dr. Sarah Chen stood in a secure laboratory beneath Tokyo. Around her, scientists from a dozen nations worked in sealed biosuits. On the examination table lay the body of a Krill warrior, its systems laid bare for study. "We have isolated the key genetic sequences," she explained to the assembled team via video conference. Her voice was tired. She had not slept properly in weeks. None of them had. "Their immune system is incredibly efficient against known pathogens, but we can engineer something they have never encountered." General Liu Wei appeared on one of the screens, his face haggard. "How long until it is ready?" 2 weeks, Sarah replied. "But General, we need to discuss the ethics of this. What we are creating is a biological weapon that targets Krill genetics specifically. If we deploy it, millions of humans have died," Liu interrupted, his voice hard. "Billions are displaced. Our cities are rubble. Do not speak to me about ethics, Doctor. Speak to me about survival." Sarah felt sick, but she understood. The war had stripped away the luxury of moral debate. Every day the Krill remained on Earth, more people died. The occupation zones were nightmares of forced labor and summary executions. 2 weeks, she repeated quietly. In the occupied territories, the resistance fought with increasing brutality. The rules of war had been abandoned by both sides. Krill warriors executed prisoners publicly to intimidate the population. Human insurgents used tactics that would have been considered war crimes before the invasion. A resistance cell in Tokyo had captured a Krill officer. They spent days interrogating him, learning about Krill weak points, psychology, and chain of command. When they were done, they did not waste a bullet. They simply left him in a locked room without food or water. The Krill metabolism required constant nutrition. He starved to death over 4 agonizing days. News of such incidents reached the Global Defense Command. General Liu read the reports without expression. He had become hard during the war, making decisions that would haunt him for the rest of his life. But he would make them anyway if it meant humanity survived. On the other side, Supreme Commander Vexthal faced similar pressures. The Krill Dominion was questioning his leadership. How could one primitive planet hold off the full might of their military? His officers were demoralized. His warriors were exhausted. He had studied human history obsessively, trying to understand his enemy. What he found terrified him. Humans had a capacity for sustained warfare that defied reason. They had fought wars that lasted decades, even centuries. They had survived genocides and returned stronger. They had walked through nuclear fire and rebuilt. They do not know how to surrender, he told his senior staff. It is not in their psychology. We either exterminate them completely, or they will never stop fighting. Then we should glass the planet from orbit, his weapons officer suggested. Antimatter bombardment. Turn their world into a lifeless rock. Vexthal considered it. The Dominion had done it before to stubborn species. But something stopped him. Intelligence reports indicated that humans had captured several Krill ships intact. They were studying faster-than-light travel. If even a few humans escaped Earth before it was destroyed, they would carry their revenge to the stars, and humans, he had learned, were very good at revenge. 2 weeks later, Dr. Sarah Chen stood before the Global Leadership Council. The weapon was ready. Codenamed Reaper, it was an engineered virus that attacked Krill genetic markers. It would spread through their ranks like wildfire, killing within days of infection. Then Secretary General Elena Volkov looked at the projections. How many will die? Every Krill on Earth, Sarah said bluntly. And if we are not careful, it could spread to their ships in orbit. Potentially their entire fleet. The council members sat in silence. They were about to commit genocide. History would judge them, assuming any historian survived. But the alternative was losing Earth. Elena looked around the room. All in favor of deployment? Every hand rose. Some quickly, some slowly, but all rose. God forgive us, Elena whispered. Deploy the weapon. The virus was released in 3 occupied cities simultaneously. It was airborne and highly contagious among Krill biology. The warriors did not notice anything wrong at first. Then, after 3 days, they began falling ill. The symptoms were horrific. The virus attacked their nervous systems, causing paralysis and seizures. Their bodies turned against them. Krill warriors who had survived dozens of battles died screaming in agony. Vexthal watched helplessly as his army dissolved. Medical teams tried to contain the outbreak, but the virus spread too quickly. Warriors who had never set foot on Earth's surface began showing symptoms. The ships themselves had become death traps. He sent a desperate message to the Dominion homeworld. Retreat. Quarantine Earth. Never return. But even as he gave the order, he knew it was too late for many. Of the 110,000 warriors who had come to Earth, fewer than 20,000 would survive to limp home. The humans watched the Krill ships begin their retreat. There was no celebration. The cost had been too high. Billions of humans dead, entire cities reduced to rubble, and the moral weight of what they had done to win. But they had won. In the captured Krill cruiser that Captain Maria Santos had taken, human engineers worked feverishly. They had reverse-engineered the faster-than-light drive. It was crude, inefficient, barely functional, but it worked. Maria stood on the bridge looking at the star charts they had recovered, the locations of Krill colonies, outposts, and supply routes, the path to their homeworld. Captain, one of her engineers said nervously. Are we really going to use this? Maria was silent for a long moment. She thought about her family, killed in the first days of the invasion. She thought about the billions who had died. She thought about the children who would grow up in a world scarred by war. Not yet, she finally said. But they need to know we can. They need to understand that if they ever come back, we will not just defend Earth. We will hunt them across the stars until there is nowhere left for them to hide. The engineer looked uncomfortable. That sounds like revenge, not defense. No, Maria corrected. It is deterrence. The only language they understand is strength. We need to make them too afraid to ever try this again. Across the galaxy, in the chambers of the Galactic Council, ambassadors from hundreds of species watched the Earth broadcasts. They saw humanity's victory. They saw the biological weapon. They saw the determination in human eyes. The peaceful Zenthi collective ambassador spoke softly. What have we witnessed? A prey species becoming predators? The ancient Kukstar trademaster corrected him. No, we have witnessed the truth. Humans were never prey. They have been apex predators since they walked upright. They domesticated wolves into dogs. They hunted megafauna to extinction with primitive weapons. They have been at the top of their food chain for so long they forgot what it meant to be hunted. And the krill reminded them, another ambassador added. Yes, the Kukstar confirmed. The krill made a critical mistake. They awakened something that was perhaps better left sleeping. They challenged the one species in the galaxy that defines itself by refusing to accept defeat. The Council watched as the krill fleet limped away from Earth, broken and defeated. They watched as humans began rebuilding with the same determination they had shown in war. And they watched as human ships, crude and dangerous, began testing their new faster-than-light drives. The galaxy would never be the same. Humanity had reached for the stars, and they had done so covered in blood and carrying weapons. Earth had become a fortress. 6 months after the krill retreat, the blue planet bristled with weapons platforms, defense stations, and patrol ships. The orbital space that had once held peaceful satellites now contained the largest military installation in known space. Admiral Chen Wei stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, Earth's first true warship. It was built from salvaged krill technology and human innovation, a hybrid vessel that represented everything humanity had learned from the war. Around it, 49 other ships formed the Solar Defense Force, Earth's first interstellar military fleet. Chen was 58 years old, a veteran of the Chinese Navy who had never imagined he would command ships that traveled faster than light. But the war had changed everyone. It had forced humanity to evolve in ways that would have taken centuries under normal circumstances. Admiral, his communications officer reported, "We are receiving the final authorization codes from Earth Command." Chen took a deep breath. The decision had been debated for months. Some argued that humanity should focus on rebuilding and defense. Others argued that the krill needed to understand there would be consequences for what they had done. The debate had raged across every platform, every government, every home. In the end, the decision came down to one question. Would humanity feel safe while the krill empire remained strong? The answer for most was no. Take us to faster than light speed, Chen ordered. Destination: krill home system. The fleet vanished in a flash of distorted space, leaving Earth behind. In the krill homeworld, panic had replaced the arrogance that once defined their species. Supreme Commander Vexthal had returned in disgrace, his fleet shattered, his warriors traumatized. The Dominion Council demanded answers. How did primitives defeat us? The High Dominator demanded, his mandibles clicking with rage. How did we lose over 90,000 warriors to a species that had not even achieved faster-than-light travel? Vexthal stood before the council, his carapace scarred and dull. We underestimated them. We treated them as prey when they are apex predators. We gave them time to adapt when we should have overwhelmed them immediately. We awakened a species that defines itself by survival against all odds. Excuses, another council member hissed. We should launch another fleet. Glass their planet from orbit before they develop further. It is too late, Vexthal said quietly. Intelligence reports indicate they have captured several of our ships. They are studying our technology. By now they likely have functional faster-than-light capability. The council chamber fell silent. The implications were staggering. A species that had gone from chemical rockets to interstellar travel in 6 months. A species that had taken krill technology and improved it. a species that held grudges and never forgot. They would not dare attack our homeworld, the High Dominator said, but there was uncertainty in his voice. Vexthal thought of the humans he had studied, their history of revenge spanning generations, their capacity for holding on to grievances for centuries, their psychological inability to let go of injustice. I believe they would dare anything, he replied. 3 days later, the human fleet emerged at the edge of the Krell home system. They did not attack. They simply held position, broadcasting on all frequencies. On the surface of the Krill homeworld, warning sirens wailed. The population, who had never known fear in their own system, suddenly understood what it meant to be threatened. Defensive fleets scrambled, but they moved cautiously. The humans had proven they were willing to sacrifice everything in combat. Admiral Chen sat in his command chair, watching the Krill ships form a defensive perimeter around their world. He could destroy some of them, maybe even break through to the planet, but that was not why he had come. Open a channel, he ordered. All frequencies. I want every Krill to hear this. The channel opened. Chen took a moment to gather his thoughts. What he said in the next few minutes would determine the future of 2 species. This is Admiral Chen Wei of the United Earth Space Force. We have come to your home system not to invade, but to deliver a message. He paused, letting the translation software work. Across the Krill homeworld, billions stopped to listen. 6 months ago, you came to our world as hunters. You thought us prey. You were wrong. We are the species that hunted mammoths to extinction with sharpened sticks. We are the species that survived ice ages, plagues, and world wars. We are the species that looked at our own moon and said, "We will walk there." And then we did. Chen stood, though no one but his crew could see him. You made us reach for the stars. You gave us a reason to unite. You forced us to adapt and overcome. And in doing so, you created something you should fear. The tactical officer began playing footage. Images of human history. Persistence hunting across African plains. Humans chasing prey for days until it collapsed. The wars that had scarred Earth. The genocides and survivals. The nuclear bombs and space stations. The technological evolution compressed into 10,000 years. This is what we are, Chen continued. We are the species that refuses to die. We are the persistence predators of Earth. And you have taught us that there are other worlds to reach, other threats to face, other challenges to overcome. He let that sink in before continuing. We do not want your empire. We do not want your worlds. We want one thing, to be left alone. You will never attack Earth again. You will never threaten human colonies. You will respect our sovereignty. His voice hardened. Because if you do not, we will return. And next time we will not stop at your homeworld. We will hunt you across every star system, every planet, every station you control. We will be the nightmare that follows your species until you are nothing but a memory. We are patient. We are persistent. And we never ever forget. The footage changed to show the biological weapon being deployed, the Krill warriors dying, the retreat, the defeat. You thought you were apex predators, but there is a difference between you and us. You evolved as hunters. We became hunters by choice. We chose to be at the top of the food chain on our world, and we eliminated everything that threatened that position. Now we are making the same choice among the stars. Chen sat back down. This is your only warning. Leave us alone or learn what it truly means to be hunted by humanity. The transmission ended. The fleet held position for 6 more hours. Weapons armed, systems ready. The Krill fleet did not approach. They simply watched and waited and understood. Finally, Admiral Chen gave the order to return home. The fleet vanished into faster-than-light travel, leaving the Krill to contemplate what they had heard. In the Dominion Council chambers, the High Dominator looked at his advisors. What do we do? Bexthal, who had remained in the chamber, spoke. We do what we have never done before. We agree to their terms. We sign a non-aggression pact. We leave them alone. The Dominion does not negotiate with prey. They are not prey, Bexthal shouted, his voice echoing through the chamber. How many times must they prove this before you understand? They are predators, maybe the most dangerous predators in the galaxy. They have endurance we cannot match, technology adaptation we cannot comprehend, and a psychological inability to accept defeat. He stepped forward. We can destroy their world from orbit. But some will escape, and those survivors will hunt us forever. They will dedicate generations to revenge. Their children's children will still be coming for us. Is that what you want? An eternal enemy that will never stop? The council sat in silence. Finally, the High Dominator spoke. Draft the treaty. We will agree to their terms. 3 months later, the Galactic Council convened for an emergency session. The peaceful Zenthi Collective had called the meeting to discuss Earth's official admission to galactic civilization. The vote was contentious. Some species admired humanity's determination. Others feared what they might become. But in the end, the vote passed. Earth was invited to join the Galactic Council as a full member. Ambassador Elena Volkov, formerly the UN Secretary-General, accepted the invitation. She stood before representatives of hundreds of worlds and spoke carefully. We did not ask for the war that came to our world. We did not want to become warriors. But we will never apologize for surviving. We will never apologize for defending our home. And we will never apologize for ensuring it never happens again. She looked around the chamber. We come to the stars not as conquerors, but as survivors. We come with the lessons of our history: cooperation over conflict, adaptation over stagnation, persistence over surrender. We offer our hand in friendship to all peaceful species, but we also offer a warning: never mistake our desire for peace as weakness. 10 years passed. Earth rebuilt with the same determination it had shown in war. The cities rose from rubble. The population recovered. Colonies spread to Mars, Europa, and beyond. Human ships explored the galaxy, mapping, trading, and learning. The Krill Dominion honored the treaty. Other species learned to respect humanity's boundaries. A new balance emerged in galactic politics, with Earth serving as a reminder that strength came in many forms. In a classroom on the Krill homeworld, a teacher instructed young warriors about the various species in the galaxy. One young Krill raised a claw. "Teacher, what are humans?" The teacher, a veteran who had fought on Earth, considered the question carefully. Humans are the species that hunts by never stopping. They are the species that survive by refusing to die. They are pack predators who coordinate like hive minds but maintain individuality. They are tool users who turn their weakness into strength. The young Krill looked confused. Are they dangerous? The teacher's mandibles clicked in what might have been a sad laugh. They are the most dangerous species in the galaxy, not because they are the strongest or fastest or most advanced, but because they are the only species that can lose 100 battles and still win the war. They are the only species that treats survival not as instinct but as choice. What should we do if we meet them? Be respectful, be honest. Never threaten them, and never ever underestimate them. The teacher looked out the window at the stars. The humans have a saying: we are not warriors because we choose war. We are warriors because we choose survival. Remember that. Remember that we learned this lesson at the cost of 90,000 warriors and our pride. On Earth, in a memorial park in New York City, a monument stood. It listed the names of the billions who had died in the war. At the base, an inscription read, "We did not seek the stars. The stars found us, but we will never forget the price of reaching them." Above Earth, the defense stations maintained their eternal watch. The Solar Defense Force patrolled human space, vigilant and ready. And in laboratories across the solar system, scientists continued to push the boundaries of what was possible. Humanity had been challenged by the galaxy's apex hunters. And humanity had won, not through strength or technology, but through the same traits that had carried them from the African savanna to the stars: endurance, adaptation, cooperation, and an absolute refusal to accept defeat. The galaxy had learned a lesson. Humanity was no longer prey. Perhaps they had never been. They were the species that had fought their way to the top of every food chain they encountered. And now, among the stars, they would do the same. Not through conquest, but through the simple, terrifying fact that they would never ever stop.